Hello, and welcome along to this short video where we are going to be looking at the 1.0.0 release of the Cake extension for Visual Studio Code. Now, this release has been a little bit of time in the making, but we finally got there. So what I do want to do is I want to say a huge shout out to everyone who contributed to this release. Specifically, Nils Anderson, who's done a lot of work in helping me get through this process. But everyone who joined on my stream the last maybe 6 or 7 weeks, we've been working on this extension on a Monday evening, trying to get things working, making sure things are working the way that we wanted to, etc. So happy to say that we've finally shipped it. So what we're going to do today is going to dig into some of the things that have changed in this release. So let's jump in. So if we look at the release notes, what we'll see is that there are a few features that have been added. We have addressed some bugs, a number of improvements, and also a couple of security-related findings. The security related ones are mainly around some of the dependencies that we take on the extension and how it actually works. Dependabot came along and told us that there was various things that need to be updated. So that's what that was. So we basically rolled those into the packaged v6 file that ultimately gets shipped. So that's what those are. A lot of the improvements are similar. They're around the different, again, some of the dependencies that we take, and we've bumped some to some of the newer versions. In terms of the bugs, a couple of things that were addressed in terms of run task. When you click run task, either on the code lens or at the command palette, wasn't quite working the way that it expects it to. This was a big one for me. We changed. If you ever use the command palette option to add a tool or add an add-in into a Cake script, what it did is basically it reformatted everything. It removed all the empty lines. It basically made a mess of the script file. So that was a big one. I was really happy to get that one fixed, and I'll show you that in action. And some of the features, we added in the ability to have a document symbol provider, so that lights up some of the built-in functionality within VS Code in terms of being able to provide an outline for a script as well as a breadcrumb along the top. There's work that we can do to improve that, but at the minute we've got a rudimentary implementation of that. Problem matcher for the task provider. So that what that means is when you execute now a task from within Visual Studio Code, if there is any error output, it'll be captured. It'll be put into the problem area within VS Code. And this one was generally just a tidy up. So this was add descriptions and enum values to VS Code Cake settings. So basically, it was Nils that did all this work. He basically went through the entire package.json and provided a description into individual elements of the configuration that you can provide, so that it's much clearer when you come to edit a setting what it actually means and what you can actually do with it. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump straight in. So I've got VS Code open. I have the latest 1.0.0 version of the Cake extension installed. So it's the extension that you know and you already have. The main change is that everything now that exercises Cake is now going to use the .NET Global tool version of Cake. It's going to use that runner. It's not going to use a local exe in the tools folder, the cake.exe. It's not going to use the .NET Core runner for Cake. It's now everything's transitioned over to use the .NET Global tool version of Cake. So that coincides with our new documentation, where we are recommending that folks use the .NET Global tool version of Cake as opposed to the other runners. And it's also why we've chosen to release 1.0.0. So the upcoming release of Cake 1.0.0, the kind of two go hand in hand now. So the new .NET Global tool version of Cake and this version of the Cake extension should work in harmony, if you like. Okay, so if I come into my terminal here and I run .NET Tool List Global, you'll see that I don't currently have the cake.tool installed. So one of the things that the extension will do is that when you attempt to do something that needs to exercise Cake, then it will install that for you. So if we go up here and we have a look at Cake and we say, let's just install a sample script so that we've got something. So the first thing that should happen is if we look at the outline is this is that document symbol provider that I spoke about. It's looked at the build.cake file and it provides us information about the different areas of it. So if you wanted to get to the run target, or the setup, or the teardown, or the default task itself, you can absolutely navigate around the script using the new outline feature. And as you add more things into here, you can do it from the breadcrumb as well. So there's different aspects that you can get to from the breadcrumb up at the top here. Like I say, there are improvements that we can make in that area, but at the minute, it gives you a rudimentary overview, hierarchy of the script that you're using. So the main one, a couple of things I want to look at was, so for example, the run task that you have here, or if you come up to Cake and you say, oh no, it's not Cake that I want at this point. It's if I do task, if I say run task here, then there is a parser for the task again. So if you run the task from here, which would be running the default task, where you click on run task, one of the things it's going to do is it's going to install the Cake.NET Global tool for us. So if I click on run task here, there will be a slight delay, and that slight delay is the extension reaching out and downloading and installing the .NET Global tool. And then what it's going to do is it's actually going to execute the script for us. So in this scenario, all I'm doing is writing out with the information alias hello cake, and we'll see that that happened down here. But if I run the .NET tool list command again, we'll see that the latest version of Cake.NET tool has been installed globally for us. So the extension is now taking care of that. Now, if you need to revert back to a different way of executing Cake, if you want to use your Bootstrapper files to initiate Cake in the same way that you did before, you absolutely can do that. So if you look for Cake, there are various things that you can override here in terms of how the code lens is executed, how the symbols are inspected, how the configuration is made up. So there's lots and lots of configuration in there, and there is some information on the in the README of the repository that walks you through what the default values are. And like I say, you can fall back to the way you used it before. So you absolutely can change it. It's just that our new default and our new recommendation going forward is that you use the .NET Global tool version. So with that in mind, let's go back into the build.cake. So the debug task works in exactly the same way as you did before. So you should be able to click on debug task, and that will invoke the .NET Global tool version. And if it's not installed, it will install it, and it will initiate the debugger, and the debugger will hit the breakpoint, and it's the same exact flow as you used before. It's just that, again, it's using the .NET Global tool, as opposed to, in this instance, it would have been using the .NET Core runner for Cake. So with that in mind, other slight changes that you might have or you will notice, if I go and say install debug dependencies, will now prompt you with what you want, because there's now choices. So the default again is, well, what do you want to do? Use .NET Global tool, or do you want to use the Cake runner for .NET Core? So when there is an option, it will ask you, and that is also shown in the Cake installation of the Bootstrappers. So if I say install a Bootstrapper, so now there are 6 options. Previously there were 2 options, which was a build.ps1 and a build.sh. Now you have the option, oh, well, do you want a Bootstrapper for .NET Core runner? Do you want the Bootstrapper for .NET Global tool? Do you want the Bootstrapper for .NET Framework? So again, the first one in the list is, we're kind of guiding you towards using .NET tool, but you obviously can fall back to the other ones if you need to. So if I install this one, for example, then what you get at the minute is a much more trimmed down version of the Bootstrapper, where all it does is invoke the .NET tool restore, which we sort of assume that you're using a tool manifest. Again, that's the new guidance that's on the website in terms of running Cake. So we assume that you're using the manifest. So what you need to do is do a .NET tool restore, followed by just invoking Cake that's installed locally on that on your tools folder, and off it goes. So it's a much more trimmed down version, and you'll see the same in the build.sh version of the script. So the new defaults, like I say, you can change them if you want to, but we are trying to guide you down this path. So that's what that is. Try to think what else we've added. Oh, I wanted to show you that as well. So if I go back to the build.cake and I say, well, I want to add an add-in up here. So let's do cake, and say, let's say I want to add the cake.git add-in. So it'll search for that. So there's cake.git there. It'll tell me all the versions that are available. Current version 22. I'm going to pull that in, and what it'll do is it will add it to the top of the file. Previously, it would have completely reformatted this file, removed all the white spaces, and basically just made a mess of it. So I'm really, really happy that we've been able to fix that. Similar goes for if you wanted to install a module. So let's have a look for cake.build systems. That should be enough to get me the one I want, build systems module. And then I'm going to pull in the latest released version, which is this one. So there we go. Does the exact same thing, doesn't break the script or doesn't reformat the script anymore. Really, really happy. The rest of the functionality should pretty much be exactly the same as it was before. Like I say, with the one caveat that the new defaults are looking for the .NET Global Tool version of Cake rather than the previous .NET Framework runner for Cake. And like I say, that's pretty much it. If there are any issues, feel free to reach out. This was just a short video just to introduce it and kind of talk about some of the reasonings behind some of the decisions that we've made. But if there are any problems, definitely reach out. You can add an issue or open an issue in the repository here, and we can have a discussion about it. Like I said, there are some improvements still to be made to it, but really happy with this release. So happy to get some feedback on if you are having issues with it. Again, thank you to everyone on my stream who helped with the creation of this, and specifically Nils. Nils did an amazing job. So thank you very much to Nils, and that's all I have. So thank you for listening, and take care.